Remember we used to live under this assumption, a different era, not that long ago, but still a different era. It's like, let public officials do their job. Don't throw out these wild conspiracy theories. Don't do that. Don't throw out this, wait for the facts, right? Just wait for the facts. And that made perfect sense, absolute perfect sense, and what we should have done, right? But here's the problem. Then we ran into this crisis of incompetence, which we do have in our country right now. I mean, that's well established. We just do. Everything, every single sector, every area, every state, every city, we've got incompetent public officials that not only don't know what they're doing, for the most part, and not all of them, no big general assumption out of me today, not all of them, but for the most part, many of them have no idea and have no idea how to at least inform the public in this day and age of digital media, when we can, for the most part, look up this information for ourselves. Case in point, the Brown University investigation out of Providence, Rhode Island, and the shooting. Still nothing going on. But it's worse than that. It's what they refuse to talk about and how they're relaying the message that makes it even worse. Speaking of incompetence, we're going to talk about Washington, D.C. This confirms exactly what you and I were talking about before. A good, smart war on drugs apparently has been launched. This was good Trump yesterday out of the White House, and I'll tell you why. It's not just about the fentanyl issue. And Ford has dropped electric vehicles. Shocker. You mean the vehicle that the public never wanted, consumers didn't ask for, Ford knew wasn't going to work, but was forced by an administration to start to manufacture. Nobody wanted those? Shocker. I tell you, just a shocker. Anyway, we'll get into all that stuff and lighten it up at the end. Thanks for finding Wicked Radio. Appreciate you. Live here now, and, if you're watching or listening on the replay later on, maybe they do have a suspect at Brown in custody. I don't know, but as we speak right now live, they don't. But speaking of the replay, all your favorite channels on X and YouTube and on Facebook, and the audio podcast as well, posted as soon as we get off here. But let's talk about it right now, the Brown investigation, because this kind of ties in, ironically, to all the other incompetence we're talking about. It's just a glaring example of it. Let's check. Let me look right now. Let me do a quick search. Do they have a suspect in custody of the Brown University shooting? No, nothing. No, absolutely nothing. How many days? They barely have video of the guy. I mean, $8 billion endowment, as we were saying yesterday at Brown University. No video, no description, no height thing, no facial recognition, no nothing. No. But it's worse than that. The investigators on the scene, now you've got university cops who, let's face it, it's an Ivy League school. What kind of trouble they have? Busting up frat parties, that's what they're used to. But then also, Providence, Rhode Island, which is a, mid-level major city, their investigation part of this too, obviously, right? Who are supposedly, reportedly impeding the investigation of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, in this. They could not have screwed this up anymore. Until I found this press conference yesterday. They're tired. They actually said, the mayor of Providence, Rhode Island, came out and said, guys, we've been working a lot and we're tired. We're tired. This was, and what's interesting to note here is the questions from a lot of the reporters. Now, you got national reporters on the scene and obviously local reporters too, and they're just not having it. The one sector here that's doing a great job in this investigation are the reporters, because they're asking real questions. They're doing a great job with it. But you have to listen to the answer here from these officials, especially the mayor of Providence at the end of this. This is something else, man.
President Donald Trump has said that Brown University is to blame for this shooting and saying it's the school's problem. Is that a fair criticism, or do you disagree with what the president said?
I don't think it's fair criticism.
Colonel, can you expand on that?
Why not? Because Brown University is not collaborating with you guys. You're lying to the press over here. They have facial recognition. We know that because they follow the student, they follow everybody in the neighborhood. Facial recognition. They need to release that data. So everybody know who the guy is in video. We got the video Saturday. Why you guys release the video today?
I think that answers the question.
Listen, Colonel, I have just
John, please, just for a second. A couple things. First of all, Brown University and Brown Public Safety, Brown Police Department has been a close collaborator throughout this process.
That's not true.
I do not accept that criticism.
Oh, come on. We know that.
Secondly, everyone you see behind us, we've all been working for now 49 hours. We're tired.
We're tired. Okay, that's the mayor. That's the mayor of Providence. Okay, we've been working a lot. We reject these accusations that we haven't done a good job and the coordination has been a mess. But you know what? We're tired. Really? You know who's tired? the parents of kids who got shot at your university. That's who's tired. We're tired. But it goes deeper than that, though, and this goes back to the reporters in the room asking good questions. Now, the reporters are getting criticized, and people are getting criticized, and people like you and me are getting criticized online for asking questions, but you have to when you get no answers. Now, unconfirmed reports, unconfirmed, obviously, but that's where we are right now. And when you don't get any answers, you have to start asking questions about unconfirmed reports. There are several witnesses who are willing to go on the record and have spoken to independent journalists who are claiming, witnesses to the Brown University shooter, again, unconfirmed, that the shooter yelled Allahu Akbar before opening fire in the building. Unconfirmed. The story to me is, at least the reporters are asking that question. The takeaway is, listen to how they try to deflect away from that, or even acknowledging that they're investigating that. I get that they have to say, investigation's still open, can't talk about that yet, but to absolutely shut down any possibility is ridiculous. I think this is the university.
Now, there's a report the shooter yelled something right before his shot came in. Could you tell us what that was?
Yeah, it's part of the investigation, John, and we'll, yeah.
Now, the only reason I asked that, though, is, for instance, like with the Unabomber, his brother recognized the writing. So it's possible a friend or family member might recognize if the person said something that was significant.
Correct.
That's why you don't, other than the 9mm, is there anything else inside that auditorium that you could tell us?
No, that's correct. And listen, like I said earlier, investigations will bring us to evidence that we need to collect in order to be able to prosecute.
But did yell something.
Would that be?
Yeah, they don't have a clue. I mean, I get that they can't, any investigation, they can't reveal everything that they absolutely know, but they can, it sounded like he was hearing that for the first time. What people on the streets in that city are saying, what witnesses are saying. There are witnesses now, they might be students or they live or work around or heard that they're begging to come on the record saying they heard that shooter say something terroristic. True? People just trying to become part of the story? I don't know, but here's the important part. You have to ask questions when you get zero information, when there's that level of non-transparency from public officials. You have to start asking questions, and good for those reporters for asking those questions. Don't ever feel bad about asking that, because it's already started. It's already started. Well, you can't start conspiracy theories like that. No, nobody's saying that, but all questions, we just seek information. All questions are relevant when you don't have any answers from an obviously incompetent investigation. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Feel free, completely free, to ask questions of the incompetent every single time. Speaking of incompetence, here's something you and I were talking about a couple of weeks ago. Remember this whole story? It's become fascinating. The whole story about Washington, D.C., and it relates back to the National Guard going in there. And then there was this big fight about, well, we don't need them because the city's safe. Look, I got all these crime stats for you. The city's safe. Look, you don't need them. No. I think we learned at the time, just by their reaction, the Washington, D.C. city officials, that seems very suspect. They are jumping way ahead of the gun here, jumping the shark, if you will, to try to go over and above, trying to prove to people that their city is so safe. But something else was happening. Like we were saying, it just wasn't jiving. Because when you looked at real-life video of investigative reporters, independents who were on the scenes, and a lot of the videos and interviews of people who were on the streets in Washington, D.C., who were saying, this has never been less safe. I don't feel safe walking to the store, going to school, going to work. And then you started to hear from those same type residents and investigative journalists who were saying, when the National Guard was here 2 weeks in, they're starting to say it's a lot safer. And then the D.C. officials came out again and said, no, we got these crime stats. The city was safe. We didn't need them. This is because of us. Something wasn't jiving. Well, lo and behold, turns out they might have been cooking the books on crime statistics, at least according to the House Oversight Committee. Here's the story yesterday, and you kind of felt like this was coming. It wasn't matching.
The House Oversight Committee now releasing a report accusing the outgoing D.C. police chief of manipulating data to artificially lower crime statistics. Bill Malusian looking at the numbers. He's live on the Hill with this. Bill, what you find out?
Bill, good morning to you. Those House Oversight Committee Republicans say the bottom line of what their investigation found is that the outgoing D.C. police chief was essentially cooking the books on crime data and
cooking the books. Haven't even heard that expression in the longest time. Whenever you hear cooking the books, you can find corruption shortly behind. Now, why would they have a vested interest in that? Well, because they are people who had jobs to keep the city safe and obviously weren't doing it. Now, this outgoing D.C. police chief, talked about her last week. That was the news that she was resigning. That was the telltale sign that the story was going to come out, that they were cooking the books on crime stats, that it was way less safe, that the murder rates were through the roof. That's why the National Guard was needed. Who is, and I know I play this clip a lot. I know, I'm sorry, but I just find it so funny every single time. I think since it broke, I think I've played this like 5 times, but allow me one more time. Hold on. You mean the outgoing police chief that was reportedly cooking the books? Was this person capable of that?
What the chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
Well, is it Pam Bondi speaking to the mayor?
I'm sorry. It's still my favorite clip. Are they? So with the National Guard here, what is the chain of command? What does that mean? Again, okay, so what's the takeaway? And you can tie this to lots of different investigations, lots of different cities, and the sad and scary thing is, it is worse than it was before. We have a crisis of incompetence in this country, like that outgoing D.C. police chief, like the Brown University investigation, where the mayor of Providence says, we're just tired. When you have a crisis of incompetence, no questions are out of bounds. None. I mean that, none. Because if they want to accuse you of being a conspiracy theorist, you throw that right back at them. It's because we're getting no answers. It's because of the non-transparency. Well, if you just ask these random questions, in press conferences, then you have a Candace Owens situation where it's conspiracy theories and unfounded things. That's your fault. That's your fault of being incompetent. Not only incompetent, but doubling up on that and covering it up with non-transparency and distractions and diversions. You have a right to ask any questions you want to when you're faced with that. All right, here is something good that happened. I thought this was actually smart yesterday. President Trump had an up and down day yesterday. His written response, I don't know if you saw that on Truth Social about Rob Reiner. That wasn't too good. I don't think, in my opinion, whatever. But he had a good press conference, and this is about a smart war on drugs. Remember, if you lived through the 80s and 90s like I did, you heard that term a lot. War on drugs. And then you had Nancy Reagan saying, just say no. It was really stupid. It just didn't work. It was kind of nonsensical. They focused on the wrong things. Now, for years, narcotics have slipped under the wire. I mean, the DEA has done the best it possibly could. Border Patrol has done the best they possibly can. But their hands are tied due to the laws that are on the books and public officials and what's happening at a federal level. God love them. They've always done their best, but they can't. And yet at the same time, they had marijuana, pot laws just as strong as like narcotics. It never made sense, and we've lived under that for like a decade, 3-4 decades now. I think that all changed yesterday. This is a smart approach on this. First, and the pot laws are tied into what Trump was talking about yesterday. It's an important part of this whole thing. But here's what he said about narcotics and fentanyl, and I don't like the term. I hate the term weapon of mass destruction, but I think it gets the point across. This is what he said.
Today I'm taking one more step to protect Americans from the scourge of deadly fentanyl flooding into our country. With this historic executive order I will sign today, we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, which is what it is. No bomb does what this is doing. 200 to 300,000 people die every year that we know of.
That they know of. He's right about that. That's not cooking the books. That's an actual number that actually happens. And it's gone on for way too long. It's empowered the cartels. In my opinion, I can say it. You don't have to say it. Take it for what you want. You make up your own mind. I think the cartels have way too much power in Congress. I'll say it. I actually believe that. I think we've got elected representatives who are scared to death and are blackmailed by cartels. Otherwise, why would this keep happening? Why? Anyway, so here you have this. Smart move politically, just strategically. Just talk about this for a second, because you know what I think, and I'm just spitballing here. I don't have any inside information, but I think what this does first and foremost is it's going to shut up all these elected representatives who are defending the drug boats that they've been blowing up, that are obvious, that the same ones that have been calling them fishing vessels. Yeah, Yeah, they're fishing vessels going that fast with blue tubs of materials to make narcotics. Right. Sure they are. Yeah, they're just fishing boats. By saying this, I think they're going to shut up because now that you've designated an official war on narcotics, how do you come out in support of that now? How do you do that? They've already started to wane down a little bit. They've already started to pipe down. So first and foremost, I think that shuts them up. Here's the real important thing, though, and this is why I think for the first time in, I think actually, honestly, my lifetime, maybe yours too, I think this is an actual smart way to go about battling drugs in our country and our kids. And this is especially relevant if you got kids and teenagers and kids in college. Because the focus is on the bad stuff. I hate to oversimplify it, but it is. The focus is on the bad stuff, the narcotics and fentanyl, and meth and coke coming into the country. If you cut down the supply chain, it's going away. And lessening up on stuff that's not as bad. I don't know how you feel about pot, but let's just face it. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's not for everybody. Maybe you hate that what it's done for you. You can see drivers on the road that are driving a lot worse, which I think is happening too. But you can't designate marijuana at the same level as you designate narcotics. And that's starting to happen. The most important part about this war on drugs announcement from President Trump in the Oval Office yesterday actually related to something he said earlier about marijuana laws. This is key to the entire thing.
Is it accurate that you are considering an executive order to reclassify marijuana as a controlled
We are
substance?
considering that, yeah.
Okay. Are you planning?
Because a lot of people want to see it, the reclassification, because it leads to tremendous amounts of research that can't be done unless you reclassify. So we are.
Isn't that interesting? I never even thought about that part of it. So if you reclassify, kind of like downgrade the danger level, that's what he's talking about there, of marijuana, it opens up, now you can federally fund it for more research. There are benefits to it, and medical benefits to it that have been documented. It's better than getting people on narcotics and opioids. And now you can federally fund that kind of stuff. And also, and it may not be for you. And you may still think that marijuana is a gateway drug, whatever. And you may be right. But you can't classify that at the same level, or sometimes even higher, if you're talking about just weight, than narcotics. You can't do it. So I think this is finally a smart approach on that. Speaking of smart, Ford finally got smart, or they finally just had enough. No more electric trucks. And now that Ford is the first to dip their toe in the water, now all the car companies are going to say, okay, this is ridiculous. There's no demand on it. So wait a minute. You're telling me that a product that the consumer didn't want, the public didn't want, the car manufacturers knew nobody wanted, and they didn't want to make them, but this was forced upon them by an administration, a previous administration. You mean that didn't work? What a shocker. Anyway, here's Ford yesterday. No more electric trucks. This will start an avalanche of common sense.
So look, the last couple of months have been really clear to us. The EV market shrank to about 5% of the U.S. market, but more importantly, the very high-end EVs, the $50,000, $70,000, $80,000 vehicles, they just weren't selling. And we had planned a full EV lineup, but we also have hybrids, and we learned a lot about the market. And we think it was the right time to listen.
They knew this was coming. They knew at some point. They were hoping and wishing that previous administration would be out of there that was forcing this down. Do you remember, going back for a second, during the Biden administration where they had this convention of all the electric car makers, all the major brands, except Tesla? How do you even do that? I actually think there are a lot of factors into it. I think that was the turning point that got Elon involved in supporting Trump, which obviously pushed him over the top to become president again. He didn't invite Tesla. Anyway, but he's talking about there, and he said it there, the Ford CEO, where he said, no, we've had some great success with hybrids. That's a different story. And some other alternative fuels that are coming down the road lately. But full electric for trucks? Yet nobody ever thought that was going to work. So good for them for finally coming to their senses. All right, we'll leave you with this. I thought this was hilarious. So let's jump to Canada for a quick second. Remember, our whole theme today was talking about this crisis of incompetence, especially in places like Canada. So getting hit hard, obviously, by the tariffs, by the trade deal. They keep pushing back. They keep calling Trump a tyrant, even though their country wants to crack down on your social media and won't let you walk in the woods when the weather's dry. It's just an insane place these days. Great people, insane government, but that's their fault. Doug Ford, he's the PM. He said yesterday of Ontario. He said yesterday Niagara Falls area wants to open up a bunch of casinos because they're losing a ton of money. So they want to open up. They want to make like Niagara Falls on their side, the Canadian side of it, like Vegas with a waterfall. This is what he said yesterday. But what's relevant is the question from the Canadian reporter. I don't know, might have been CBC, I don't know. And he starts this whole premise that got Doug Ford going off on it. He's like, Canadians aren't going to Florida. They're really hurting down there. And Doug Ford followed up with that. You talk about nonsense.
Canadians are no longer flying to Florida. They're not being, the snowbirds have basically, it's dried up. There's been an organic boycott of tourism into America. Do you support that? And are you going to go to Florida this year?
Yeah, so let me tell you, it's going to be the first time I'm not going to Florida. But I talk to so many people. Don't let this guy, Trump, determine and ruin your life and everything. That's my personal choice. Maybe some families have gone to Florida their whole lives. Go to Florida. You know, that's great. But I encourage you to stay here and support local tourism. But you can't let the one tyrant change your lives, right? You just can't let it happen. I'm doing it out of my own personal choice because I just can't do it. But don't let this guy change your lives. If you go down and you see, you know, maybe their grandparents are down there. Maybe they're somewhere else. So we'll get through this. But they're hurting down there right now. They're hurting on all fronts. They're hurting on their economy. President.
Okay, I can speak to this because I'm here. No one who lives in Florida, in any South Florida, Tampa area, Space Coast is booming too, Panhandle area. No one who lives here, no one. I don't care who you find. No one will tell you that Florida's hurting. No one. Maybe there's less Canadians, but they got filled up by somebody else. In fact, Governor Ron DeSantis posted this just yesterday in response to Doug Ford in Ontario saying that Florida breaks its own record again. 34.4 million visitors in the second quarter of 2025. They only have the numbers from the second quarter. I bet you in the third quarter it's actually going to go up because the weather got nicer. But they're hurting down there. People just aren't going to Florida. Right. Remember we were talking about incompetence? There you go. Incompetence doubled up with lying? I don't know. Or cluelessness. Who the heck knows? But that's the takeaway. You have a right to ask questions, as any question, seeking information as much as you want when you're facing in a crisis of incompetence like what we have with elected officials and appointed officials throughout the whole country. Always remember that. You're not a bad guy for asking the questions. Thanks for finding me. I appreciate you as always. Audio podcasts, wherever you like to get those, which apparently, I don't know what happened over the holidays, all kinds of new subscriptions on there, so welcome to it. All you got to do is press subscribe, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, all of it. Actually, on Spotify, you got to press like. That's their follow button. And the replay on X and YouTube. Clips are on YouTube, too, and on Facebook as well. Whew. All right. Went a little long, but now I'm finally out of material. So get into your Tuesday. Make it a wicked awesome one. I'll talk to you tomorrow.